Welcome to your Daily Dose. My name is Robert. This is Susan with me, and we're joined today by Sydney Collins. Sydney, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Now, Susan, you found Sydney and you brought her to us because she has an interesting connection to Parkinson's. How did that relationship start? And then we'll hear Sydney's side of this.
From me, it was attending a couple of different CAPS, Capital Area Parkinson's Society in Austin, Texas, where Sydney has recently moved and brought her very own business with her, and her passion for contribution and helping those of us in the Parkinson's community. Her work with CAPS is completely volunteer, which is amazing because she runs programs and designs things and has an amazing story to share.
Yeah, Sydney, I was going to say, so what I saw, and you tell me, fill in the gaps here, that you didn't have a background as an inventor, entrepreneur. That wasn't like what you were trying to do. And yet you discovered through your work with people with Parkinson's a gap, as it were, in terms of gait training. Is that right? That you noticed they were struggling with the rehabilitative devices or lack thereof. And what did that spark for you? How did you get to invent what we now have in the marketplace?
Yeah, so no, I did not have a background and I had no intention of starting a company or being an entrepreneur when I started this company. What happened was I was studying biomedical engineering in kind of brain computer interfacing type space. And I ended up meeting this local veteran named Jack Brill who lived with Parkinson's, and he suffered from one of the most common symptoms, a mobility symptom called freezing of gait. And he actually knew that these visual and auditory cues worked for him because they're standard practice in any physical therapy clinic. And from my research background, I started to dive into the research, and I found there's so much research backing up these visual and auditory cues. Over 100 peer-reviewed articles have been published showing efficacy. And I thought it was so ridiculous that something so simple and so well known to be effective didn't exist in the world already. And so it really started by me just making this device for him. You know, it was a side project in school. It was a way that I could use my engineering skills to help somebody in the community. And that very quickly, became something a lot bigger than that.
So the name of the product is NextStride, is that correct?
That's right.
And where is it right now? Is it formally available? How do people find out more about it?
Yeah, so it is out on the market right now. We're selling in 7 countries, including the US. We just got up on Amazon, where we've been up on our website selling for the past, it's probably been on the market for 2.5, 3 years now. It's 100% covered for veterans through the VA. And then we also have a partnership with an organization called the Parkinson's Wellness Fund, where they'll actually pay for the product for anybody who needs financial assistance. If someone does want to pay out of pocket for it, it's about $500. And then we have payment plans and whatnot to help people out as well.
So when you're giving this pitch, how does it sound? If you're giving the 30-second elevator speech to somebody saying, what the heck is NextStride?
So, I mean, essentially, it depends on where we're starting, right? So if someone asks me, what do? I tend to start at like the very high level. We make mobility aids for people with neurological ambulatory disorders. If someone asks, okay, what do you mean by that? What kind of mobility aids do you make? Then I go into a little bit more detail and say, okay, well, what we do with NextStride is we take the most effective visual and auditory cues from research that have been standard practice in any physical therapy clinic, and we make them portable and accessible for people anywhere to allow for continuity of care, to allow people to be able to have access to these visual and auditory cues that have been proven to be effective anywhere, all the time. So for Jack, that meant, being able to go to the bathroom by himself, being able to go on a walk with his wife, Sandy. His freezing was so bad that he could not walk 10 feet without having NextStride. So for him, it was, the difference of being in a wheelchair, being able to walk. That's going to be different for everybody, right? Everybody's kind of at a different stage and experiences freezing differently. But essentially, like what the actual product is, the visual cue that we use is a green laser line projected onto the floor in front of you. The auditory cue is a metronome. Those 2 cues alone have been shown to reduce falls by 40% for people with Parkinson's. reduce, sorry, my camera is falling, so I keep having to readjust. So I can cite all sorts of research, right? Reduction in falls by 40%, reduction in duration of freezing by 69%, reduction in frequency of episodes by 43%. There's a bunch of research behind this. But what's happening in the brain, and what's really fascinating to me, is what's happening in the brain. And what we're doing is we're using these visual and auditory cues to change the intention behind the movement. That changes the part of the brain that's being activated to initiate that movement, allows you to bypass the damaged neural circuits that are causing freezing of gait, and allow someone to be able to restore mobility. So in simpler terms, instead of using the automatic kind of part of the brain to start the movement, you're using this goal-oriented part of the brain. Same movement, different part of the brain that you're using to activate it.
Interesting.
Hold that thought. This part of the brain says it's the end of this episode, but I want to continue if I can on the other side, because I just starting into the part of the brain that I think people need to hear more about. So this is your Daily Dose. We'll be back in just a moment.